Hello everyone, welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish video. In today's Big Finish video we are doing the top 10 Big Finish for 2023. This has become a bit of a tradition, hasn't it? I've been doing it since 2016. You can check out the playlist down below to see previous year's entries, but this is the 2023 edition. One of the most challenging videos of the year to do, trying to narrow down how much Big Finish I've bought and going, right, these are the 10 best. Again, this is all my opinion. This list might be completely different to yours. Who knows, we might agree, but this is, at the end of the day, my opinion. So let's talk about Big Finish in 2023 first, before we start talking about the heavy hitters of the year for me. I think 2023 was a really solid year. I think that it was a more consistent year over 2022. I think 2022 probably had more breakaway releases, more sort of 10 out of 10 releases, and sort of more sort of standout releases overall. I think that this year it's all been very much the same level and great, so it's been very difficult to go, okay, these are the best of the best, which is great because it shows that, you know, Big Finish are maintaining the high standards, and that's what you want, because Big Finish, you know, is behind a paywall, so you are putting money towards it, so you want the highest quality. And you might be wondering, you know, what did you think of Dalek's Genesis of Terror? That was meant to be bad. Genuinely, I thought it was fine. It was fine. It probably should have been put with the Ark, and it probably would have gone down better. But as an individual release, I can see why people probably were a little bit annoyed, but I thought it was fine. It was just fine. Fine. So, with that out all the way, if you enjoy your Big Finish content, then please do consider hitting the subscribe button, because there's plenty of Big Finish related content coming up in the future. Reviews, top 10s, tier lists, you name it, news. This channel covers it all. So, with that out of the way, let's begin the top 10. Kicking off this top 10, we have a Goliath of a release, and it's part of Big Finish's 60th anniversary. It is the Box of Terrors. You were probably expecting one in the future. But yeah, this is part of the audio novels range, and on this channel I like to put the spotlight on ranges and releases that probably don't get much coverage as much as they should do, because this is a great range and this is a great release. This is just under 9 hours long, which might sound very daunting, but when you've got a reader like John Coleshaw, who is a master impressionist, every character has their own distinct voice, and it just makes it very easy. And the audio novels are kind of sort of stories where you can dip in and out of, because, you know, they're enhanced audiobooks, they've got sound design and music, and the music is wonderfully 1970s within this. And this is essentially what if Doctor Who had a 15-year anniversary story, as it's a multi-Doctor story with the third and fourth Doctor, who have a sort of great sort of friction dynamic. You know, it's very much written like, you know, John Pertwee and Tom Baker in the room. You can see that there's a bit of an ego clash there, but they all have one common goal, and that's, you know, Sarah Jane. And this is a multi-Sarah Jane story, which the story is very much your traditional Doctor Who story, but as the story progresses, it very much shifts to Sarah's story and becomes hers through her perspective, and that's wonderful. And this is a story with such a grand scale to it. It's not only a multi-Doctor, multi-Sarah story, it's of another multi-character as well. I'm not going to spoil it, but the story itself is very sort of Flux-like, in the sense that there are these beacons throughout the universe that are sort of keeping the sandbox from opening, which the sandbox is this sort of Pandora's box, and essentially another version of Sharda, which is a prison what holds some of the most evil creatures and beings in the galaxy. And Omega wants access to that so he can become corporeal and, you know, let the Time Lords get revenge on the Time Lords. And that's essentially the story. And it feels very much like a love letter to the Target books, and it's a story that feels very 70s, and it just sort of shifts into this grand scale universe ending type thing, with the story becomes very grand in sort of part 5, with sort of these dust devils as a planet and the sandboxes being unleashed and hell is breaking out through the universe. It's just got such a great scale to it, and it's just immense fun to listen to. John Coleshaw, like I say, does a tremendous job. So many twists and turns within it. It's not only a celebration of 70s Doctor Who, but also a celebration of what Big Finish do as well. And it's a great release. Highly recommend The Box of Terrors. At number 9 we have a Ninth Doctor release, and this is my favourite Ninth Doctor box set of the year, and that is Travel in Hope, which is a really solid Eccleston box set, and the 3 stories in there: Below There, The Butler Did It, and Run. So let's talk about Below There. Now this feels very much like the RTD we all know and love. It's sort of set on a space station, sort of an in-between point, and there's a character called Vix on there who's on her own, and this story really sells the sort of loneliness and isolation of this place, and it feels very claustrophobic, and the way the Doctor's incorporated within it, it's very much Vix's story for the first half, and this story kind of lives or dies by this character called Vix. And thankfully Kelly Adams, who plays Vix, is such an incredible performer. She really carries this story, and it is a wonderful story. You know, and it's a story you probably feel like run of the mill, but you know, it just has that flair to it. Vix very much reminds me of Adelaide Brooke from Waters of Mars, and this story does feel very much like Waters of Mars, which is always a good thing. Now, The Butler Did It, probably the weakest story in the box set. It's the shortest story. I think it's like 47 minutes. It's very much played for a comedy, and it allows Eccleston to, you know, flex his comedy chops, and I think it works very well. But for me, the standout story in this is Run, which, you know, you might be thinking, oh, it's going to be about the Doctor running around. No, it's a political thriller, and it's a story I didn't think I needed to hear, but I'm glad I heard it. It is the origin story of Alpha Centauri, how they became, you know, a political figure on the political stage, and this is the Ninth Doctor encouraging them to make a stand, and it is really good. It feels wonderfully of the era. I think this is what the most 2005 feeling audio Big Finish have done in a while. It just encapsulates that era. It's very much like End of the World with all these sort of quirky aliens, and it just fits 2005. If you want a slice of 2005 Doctor Who, listen to Run. At number 8 we have a story from Big Finish's Wanton Future saga, and it is the Martian Invasion of Planetoid 50, containing the 10th Doctor, Missy, and the Pater Noster gang. And a few little classic Doctors sprinkled in there, because we've got the first sort of 14 minutes with the first Doctor, played by Stephen Noonan, and that is wonderful. He really fits sort of the Victoriana feel, and this story is very much a love letter to H.G. Wells, as it's Doctor Who does War of the Worlds, and you know, it's not only celebrating sort of, you know, the father of science fiction, H.G. Wells, but also celebrating 60 years of Doctor Who, and this is when we start to get a few more answers from Wanton Future with the degeneration, as we see the Doctor flung into his future with a, you know, the 10th Doctor. And I wanted to get a 10th Doctor release on here because this is the only David Tennant sort of Doctor Who Big Finish release of the year. And it was an absolute delight. Him and Michelle Gomez are such an interesting combo, and this is why we have sort of anniversary stories, because it's getting unlikely pairings, and the pairing of, you know, David Tennant and Michelle Gomez is just chef kiss. It works incredibly well, and the Pater Noster gang, again, brilliant. They fit the 10th Doctor really well. It's a Russell T Davies Doctor in a Moffat style story, and I think that's the best way to describe it. You know, a lot of comedy within it, especially from Strax, and yeah, a real great addition and a highlight from the Big Finish Wanton Future saga. At number 7 we have a First Doctor Adventure box set, The Demon Song, the second box set in the First Doctor Adventures, with Stephen Noonan and Lauren Cornelius. Now, The Demon Song is a particular highlight. It's a 2-part story where we see the First Doctor and Dodo in a post-pandemic world in 2022 in Camden, London, and I think that they really learnt their lessons from The Miniaturist, where we have the sort of First Doctor in a what-if sort of 1960s version of 2019. We have the First Doctor and Dodo in our world, and them trying to navigate it is brilliant. As we have the sort of some nice little character moments between them, with Dodo going, oh, why have people got little mini televisions in their pockets, and the First Doctor using the sort of signet ring on the tube barrier. Great little bits of comedy throughout this, and sort of the comedy writes itself. with those two characters, and I think that Stephen Noonan and Lauren Cornelius give some of their best performances. I feel like they're more relaxed within the roles, and I think Stephen Noonan gives a very nice sort of surreal, heartfelt performance in the Demon Song, and we have sort of Dodo and the Doctor sort of split off from each other, so they have to find their own sort of companions in themselves, and that's great as we have the first Doctor entering the world of podcasters and all that sort of stuff, as we have Daniel Diarf, which is a great character, great sort of rapport between him and the first Doctor, who has sort of illusions of grandeur, as it were, and the Demon Song itself does get stuck in your head, and it's very unnerving and very creepy, and there's a wonderful atmosphere to it, and Dodo, Lauren Cornelius I should say, gives her best performance as Dodo easily. It's tremendous as not only playing Dodo but the Siren. It's a real fun, snappy two-parter, and I think that is a great a line the first Doctor Adventure should go down. I think that it just really sort of has that nice sort of flair and energy to it, having sort of the first Doctor in our modern world. But we have a traditional first Doctor story in the form of the Incident, which is a bit of a mouthful when you try and say it like that. The Incident is a nice, great sort of mystery story set in a sort of post-World War II Britain, who are trying to rebuild themselves, and they're looking for alternative energy sources. Enter this mysterious aliens thing. Ooh. The military all there. It feels very Pertwee, a wonderful atmosphere to it, and yeah, a lot of fun within it. A nice, simple, straightforward 4-part story with a great mystery and atmosphere to it. So at number 7 we have The Demon Song. At number 6, just missing out on the 5th spot, we have a Big Finish range what I hold very close to my heart, and is one of their Jewel in the Crown ranges, and that is the Third Doctor Adventures. We had 2 Third Doctor Adventure releases, and one really stood out, and that is Intelligence for War, a 7-part Season 7 story by Eddie Robson. Now, Season 7 has its own distinct flavour and tone, which is just unlike any other Doctor Who out there. And the sound design by Luke Pinetnik is wonderful, and I think that there is sort of microscope detail with replicating the sound design. There's some wonderful bits of sort of callbacks to Inferno within the sound design of it. This story, it's mind games and espionage with Liz Shaw at the centre, a character who didn't get much development in the TV show, a character I absolutely love, and it's great that Big Finish are breathing new life into the potential the character had, and this is very much about Liz's past and coming to haunt her in her present, as sort of Liz sort of becomes a fugitive, and we have the Doctor and Brig sort of on their own trying to save Liz, and this gives Liz a lot of agency, and there's so many twists and turns within it, a lot of, who can you trust, who can you not. It's wonderful stuff within it. It's a 7-part story, what might sound a bit daunting, but Big Finish have found the perfect format for these by making the episodes sort of about 21-24 minutes, so they feel very incredibly bite-sized and very bingeable at the same time, and I think that this is probably Daisy Ashford's best performance as Liz, and John Coleshaw and Trim Trelaw do an amazing job as well, and this is just another high standard the Third Doctor range has, and this is a true testament to Season 7, why it's so unique and well regarded. This definitely deserves to be in the pantheon of Inferno and Doctor Who and the Silurians and Spirit from Space and Ambassadors of Death. This is just a true classic Third Doctor Season 7 style story. We've reached the top 5, so at number 5 we have, rather fittingly, a 5th Doctor release, In the Night. Now this is mainly on here for the 4-part story Pursuit of the Nightjar by Tim Foley. And Tim Foley, if you see his name on anything, you know that it's going to be chef kiss. It's such a wonderful story, Pursuit of the Nightjar. It's a very great sort of character study of the 5th Doctor, as it's very much him arriving in one of his childhood stories that inspired him to be the man he is now. I think it's Captain Gobek, and the person who inspired him, who's on this sort of mission to sort of give aid to this planet, but he's being pursued by Captain Elso. He's sort of the bad of the story. He's not allowing him to sort of win the race to give aid. So it's very much like Enlightenment in a way. It's it's a small, sort of intimate story with a lot of great character moments, and it's got some great sort of action set pieces within it. It feels very 1980s. It's one I don't really want to talk about too much, but it's such a great 4-part story, and it proves that why the Fifth Doctor is one of the best, Big Finish Doctors, Big Finish have, because it's a great sort of character study of the Fifth Doctor, pushing him into one of his own stories and sort of showing how sort of our own stories we have can be something completely different, and history has other ideas about the fabled tale what the Doctor knows and loves. Resistor is the 2-part story, which is okay. It's alright, not too much to say about it, but the main highlight is Pursuit of the Nightjar. At number 4 we have a 4th Doctor release from Angels and Demons, which I recommend picking up because it's got a little story you could only get within this box, which is The Ghost of Margaret. And Series 12 of the 4th Doctor, while we're talking about it, is probably one of the most consistent 4th Doctor series since Series 8. But there's one story I want to talk about Angels and Demons from, which is a particular highlight, and 4th Doctor Series 12 in general, which is Stone Cold, which has become a Stone Cold classic story for me. It's a 4th Doctor versus the Weeping Angels, one of the most iconic new series villains meets the iconic classic Doctor, Tom Baker. And this is a wonderful story, great story for tension. Each part ramps up the tension. The setting is so unusual, this sort of lava planet with this sort of pleasure cruise. It's sort of Robot of Death meets the 2-part Series 5 Weeping Angel story. It's a wonderful sort of mishmash of eras. The sort of Hinchcliffe and Moffat era merged together beautifully to create this story. Tom Baker, he's obviously the sort of clownish Doctor, but he's playing it completely straight. There's not much goofy modes within this. He knows how serious the situation is as soon as he realises the Weeping Angels are here. And Part 4 is one of Tom Baker's best performances as the Doctor. It's just tremendous. The Weeping Angels are a genuine threat within this. How they're built up like a Robert Holmes villain. It is just a real love letter to the Hinchcliffe era with a Moffat style villain. It's just tremendous. I love it. It's a great 4th Doctor. It's a great sort of slice of 4th Doctor, and that's really what you want. It's a sort of a nice merging of eras, and that's the best way to describe it, really. At number 3 we have an 11th Doctor release. Now we had 3 11th Doctor releases. We had All of Time and Space, and we had Everywhere and Anywhere, and the little bonus story Broken Hearts. Now, before I reveal which is my favourite of these releases for the 11th Doctor this year, go and check it out. It's a brilliant series, one of the best ongoing series Big Finish have got. It's tremendous what they do with the 11th Doctor. It's very much like what they've done with the 5th Doctor, with sort of the loss of Adric. It's sort of a nice mission statement for the 11th Doctor, and it just feels very of the era. And the 3rd box set with the Cybermen, it fills in a few little plot holes, such as the origin of the Nightmare in Silver Cybermen. But the one box that I'm going to recommend is All of Time and Space, the 2nd box set. This just feels like a love letter to Doctor Who. This is very much very Moffat-y, and it feels like a Big Finish spin on Moffat. It's very experimental, and that's what I appreciate about it, especially the first story, which is All of Time and Space by Ellery Quest, which, if you've listened to it, you'll know that it's a very meta story. It's especially the theme tune. It's got the best rendition of the Doctor Who theme tune in any medium. It's just a love letter to the show, and it's just a brilliant story showing you why the Doctor and Valerie are such a great pairing. Valerie, if you haven't experienced, is probably the best 11th Doctor companion ever, and that's a bold statement. And if you feel a bit outraged by me saying that, go and listen, because they're great, they're amazing. It's one of the best dynamic Doctor and companion dynamics on audio, and it's just a real love letter to the show. And I think that this box set just has the Moffat vision at its heart with a Big Finish spin. We have the Urn, which is probably the weakest story in the box set, but it's important for Valerie in terms of her character, of her getting a love interest. And then we have the third story, which is The Curiosity Shop by James Goss, which is all out there. It's a celebration of the Doctor in all incarnations. Jacob Dudman voicing all the other Doctors, which is great. And it's very much quite a bleak, depressing story. And it's a very interesting story for the Doctor, but also celebrating what the Doctor stands for. And it's a very Moffat message behind, because I think Moffat is a writer that just gets the character of the Doctor, and James Goss implements that message and puts it front and centre in the story, while Valerie goes through hell, really. And it's a really, like I say, this box set, it's experimental, it's wacky, it's out there, but it's a celebration of, you know, the Doctor, and I think that's what Series 7 was doing. It was a celebration of Doctor Who, and I think all of Time and Space captures that beautifully. And like I say, check out the 11th Doctor Chronicles. It's the best ongoing series, if not the best ongoing series Big Finish have ever done in terms of Doctor Who stuff. Go and check it out. Brilliant. At number 2, a Big Finish top 10 wouldn't be complete without some 8th Doctor love, and I've picked Audacity, which is a tremendous box set, and this is the start of a whole new chapter in the 8th Doctor's life. This was incredibly exciting because I love the TV movie era of the 8th Doctor, that sort of early Big Finish feel, and I think this box set really replicates an early Big Finish feel. And if you know why, you'll get it, because obviously the ending for this box set, it's kind of out there now. But this is very much the Byronic 8th Doctor, you know, that he's sort of full of hope and love and full of life and energy and just wants to see the wonders of the universe. Match that with a character called Audacity, who longs to be out in the stars, who has a fascination with the stars, who's sort of stargazing and wishes upon a star, and it's sort of being careful what you wish upon. Because that star might be an evil alien creature, and it's very much sort of Doctor, you know, the 8th Doctor just really suits the sort of Regency England. You know, the 8th Doctor is very much a character in the shadows waiting to step in, and it's a great sort of setup for Audacity's character, but she's a character who wants to sort of benefit, you know, people who are less fortunate and sort of distribute wealth, you know, putting on these lavish parties and then sort of essentially mugging the guest, going, wait, give us some coin. It's a real great story, and the Devouring, great monster, great sound design for it in particular. But the main reason you're probably picking this up is for the 2-part story by Tim Foley, The Great Cyber War. And this story is why Big Finish exists. It's a reason why you want to experience Big Finish, because it is the most Big Finish story out there, because it's a cannon blaster. It's explaining the plot holes within Revenge of the Cybermen. It explores the Vogons. It explores why the Cybermen have a fear for gold. It's the debut of the Revenge of the Cybermen on audio, and that might sound like a very niche thing to get excited, but it's exciting, and Nick Briggs does an amazing job voicing sort of Christopher Robbie's sort of cyber leader within it, and explains why they're a little bit more emotionally charged Cybermen within it. It's a great, tense story. Great build up to the Cybermen, and it really builds up the fear factor for the Cybermen, and just it's great to finally explore bits of the Cyber War within it. It's a tremendous story, and like I say, it's a great epic story, and it explains basically why the Vogons have the sort of Seal of Rassel behind them as well. It's a cannon blaster, but it's such an exciting, thrilling adventure, and a lot of fun within it, and it's a great story again by Tim Foley. So we've reached the number 1 spot. What is my favourite Big Finish release of 2023? Now, this release has been my favourite since January 2023, and there have been releases that have challenged it, but it stood firm and it has remained the number 1 release. And my number 1 release is The Diary of River Song, A Friend of the Family by Tim Foley. What a year for Tim Foley, eh? Like I say, anything written by him, chef kiss. Now, this is probably, no doubt, the best River Song story in any medium. If you want to check out the Diary of River Song series, this is it. Now, the Diary of a River Song series has ended, and this probably should have been the ending point because it's such a beautifully crafted story. A story I was a bit on the fence about listening to because I thought I've heard it already before. That's probably most Doctor Who stories, isn't it? Because if you've experienced the Ninth Doctor adventure Auld Lang Syne, again, by Tim Foley, where we have the Ninth Doctor sort of checking in on a family in this sort of house every New Year's Eve, this is essentially that, but with River, but done across multiple time periods, as we have the explanation on how she becomes a professor, as the Lunar University makes a discovery about this old Earth house, and there's a whole mystery involving that, and we get to sort of follow the Mortimer family throughout these different periods of time, and River becomes entangled with the family and unravels the mystery bit by bit. We've got great supporting characters, the family's so lovable and likeable. It's an emotionally charged story. River Song's companion of the story, Hugo, played by Mark Elstop, this hologram, is wonderfully sassy and brilliant. It's such a brilliantly crafted story over 4 hours, and by the end of it you don't want to leave, and I don't really want to talk too much about it because it's such a wonderfully crafted, beautiful story, as I'm going to keep saying, and I don't want to spoil it because it's such a wonderful release and such a surprising release that I didn't expect to love it as much as I do, but my goodness, it has got a lot of heart to it, and it just shows that River isn't a wonderful character who, you know, it deserves to be one of the icons of Doctor Who because it is an amazing story, you know, told across, you know, 80 years, and it's just a great sort of timey-wimey story full of mystery to keep you invested over the 4 hours. So that has been my top 10 Big Finish releases of 2023. Of course, there are some brilliant stories I've not talked about, like the Green Man from the Second Doctor Adventures. That was a wonderful highlight from that box set. But obviously, I can't talk about every Big Finish because I'll be here all day. So let me know your favourite Big Finish releases of the year. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe for plenty more Big Finish related content on the channel and upcoming in the near future. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and bye bye.